It's Kinney! Out of my 50 favorite video game franchises out there, the Mario series is one of my most beloved. Well, besides the Sonic and Far Cry games. From platformers to turn-based RPGs to sports games to party games, the old plumber has done a lot since his humble beginning way back in the early 80s. However, being such a big name in the industry, Mario inevitably wound up in some truly awful titles. Games that, in my humblest opinion, were not only unworthy of bearing Mario's name, but also because of how miserably low they set the bar sometimes. Now, mind you viewers, this is just my own personal opinions, and they do not reflect the opinions of either Dylan or Mike. So with that all out of the way, let's go through what I think are the worst Mario titles ever. Number 5. Mario's Game Gallery. I can't fault this game too much. It is, after all, the first game in which the infinitely talented Charles Martinet provided the voice for Mario. And it is pretty darn cool to hear Mario talk every now and then.
Do you want to play as a Yoshi or as a Koopa?
However, this game's worst crime is that it is unbelievably boring. Have you ever wanted to just play a game of checkers, or Yahtzee, or Go Fish with Mario characters? Because that's all you're gonna get in this game, along with dominoes and backgammon. It almost seems like it was released as a novelty, kind of like a, hey look, it's a video game character playing regular board games and card games. But try playing it, and like me, you'll soon realize that the novelty wears off pretty fast. The game becomes really dull really quick, and Mario's repetitive one-liners will eventually start to get old. Mario's Game Gallery is also super easy. Maybe not for a really young crowd, but if you're like 10 and up, this game's not going to be much of a challenge for you. Another thing that Mario's Game Gallery doesn't have is music. There's only one tune at the very beginning of this game, but that's it. Only one song. And mind you, this was released on computers. You can't tell me that they didn't have enough memory on a CD-ROM disc to put some additional songs in there. And it's kind of unfortunate because being on a PC, the devs could have done some really good renditions of iconic Mario tunes. Now well, unless you're having trouble sleeping, I suggest giving this game a miss. Number 4. Hotel Mario. Okay, now we're getting into some real bad Mario titles. Hotel Mario was an exclusive game for a console that Nintendo didn't even make. Enter the Philips CDI system, a console that was so bad that it's gone down as one of, if not the, worst system ever made. You viewers are probably wondering how the old plumber wound up on such a device. Well, long story short, Nintendo had plans on making a CD-based add-on for their SNES console, and they wanted the electronics company Philips to design and produce it. However, almost as soon as Nintendo came up with the idea for an add-on, they cancelled it. Philips decided to make a console anyway, and from what I've heard, because of the loophole within the contract between Nintendo and Philips had the right to use several of Nintendo's characters for use on their console, and thus we ended up with this game. We also ended up with a few Zelda titles, but that's another story. Anyway, the only thing that you do in this entire game is stomp on a few enemies and mostly close open doors. One of the most iconic video game characters ever made, and the best Philips could do was make him close doors. Pretty underwhelming and downright lame, I know. I could see Hotel Mario working as like an 8-bit game, like this would have been okay on the NES, or maybe even the Game Boy, but the Philips CDI was supposed to be this cutting-edge 32-bit system, and yet this title plays like an early NES game, and looks like an average SNES game. By the way, if you thought that this title was short, think again. It's actually 75 levels long. That's right, 75 agonizing and frustrating levels of closing doors and occasionally stomping on enemies. But do you guys want to know what the worst part is? This didn't have to be a bad game. Originally, Hotel Mario was being developed under the title Super Mario's Wacky Worlds, a platformer that would have used a modified version of the Super Mario World engine. However, because the CDI had a terrible launch, Philips decided to restructure the dev team, i.e. fired most of them, and cut the budget of the game in half. That's why we ended up with Hotel Mario, and that's why it's one of the worst Mario titles in my opinion. Also, the FMV cutscenes are just awful.
Nice of the princess to invite us over for a picnic, eh, Luigi? I hope she made lots of spaghetti.
Number 3. Mario is Missing. I want you viewers to take a close look at the box art for this game. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? You got Bowser capturing Mario, and you got Luigi here seemingly searching around for him. It's awesome artwork, and I love the concept. Thankfully, so did Nintendo, because they eventually used it for Luigi's Mansion, a game that I really like. Too bad this box art is a lie, though. Unlike most Mario titles, which are usually platformers, Mario is Missing is an educational video game. In fact, it's an educational video game about geography. You go around the globe as Luigi, you learn of and answer trivia questions about the area of which you're in, and you also find items and return them to a particular level's curator. Oh, and by the way, you cannot, under any circumstances, die in this game. Enemies, including bosses, just phase through you as if you were never there at all. In other words, Mario is Missing has zero challenge. You know, Mario's game gallery was boring, but at least it could come off as like a novelty. This game, on the other hand, is monotonous from the very start all the way to the bitter end. Don't get me wrong, I actually understand how important it is to teach people, specifically young people, about geography, but I also understand that there are much better ways of teaching that subject. Putting it all into a video game is just not a good idea, especially if you're using Mario characters. There's not that many levels in this game, only around 15, but don't let that little number fool you. Despite only having a paltry amount of places to go, they're all dragged out because of what must be accomplished before leaving. Meaning that this game is quite long. Maybe not as long as Hotel Mario, but still long. The only good thing that I can say about Mario is Missing is that the music is actually good. It's not great, in fact a lot of the tunes are just different renditions of one particular song from Mario World, but it's passable. Too bad the rest of the game isn't. Number 2. Mario's Time Machine. Oh goody! Another educational Mario title. This time it's about history, and just like the last one, it was made by the same guys, Software Toolworks. Perhaps I should talk about these guys, seeing as that they might have actually been an okay team to be making a Mario game. You see, Software Toolworks were a group of devs that, for the most part, made a lot of educational software for PCs back in the 80s. But one of their breakthrough titles was a fun little game called the Chess Master 2000. You want to know what other fun games Software Toolworks made? They made Degeneration, an isometric action-adventure title, Legend, The Four Crystals of Trazier, an RPG dungeon crawler, and they made Mega Race, a simple yet decent racing game. I understand that edutainment was Software Toolworks' specialty, but they made regular games too. They had Nintendo's permission, they had the assets, so why couldn't they have just made this and Mario is Missing regular Mario games? I mean, come on, the box art for Mario's Time Machine looks really cool. And I would have loved to have been fighting Koopas dressed as Roman centurions or medieval knights. Everything that was wrong with Mario is Missing is made even worse in Mario's Time Machine. Just like in the last title, you go around and return specific items to specific people. However, instead of wandering around aimlessly in a major city, you now get to wander around aimlessly in different time periods. Oh, there are also trivia questions to answer, and unlike last time, they made it as frustrating to do as humanly possible. Nice. One other thing that this game shares in common with Mario is Missing is how there are not that many levels, yet they're all dragged out because of what must be done before leaving. Heck, even the music in Mario's Time Machine is bad. When I listen to the tunes made for this game, I can't help but think that the devs just weren't really trying. It sounds cheap, like it was done over a weekend in some dude's house. This is a horrendous title, and it in no way deserves to carry Mario's name. Though, I know of one other Mario game that's quite a bit worse, as far as my humble opinion goes. Dishonorable mentions. Before we get to number 1, I'd like to briefly go over some titles that just weren't bad enough to make the cut. Number 1 is Mario's early years games. Technically, these are 3 titles, but I decided to roll them into one for time convenience and because when the heck will I ever talk about these games again? They're all early childhood rated games, and part of the reason I didn't put any of them on the list is because those are such easy targets. Also, after playing these games, I could actually recommend them for a really young audience. If for nothing else, it could help get your kid into playing the Super NES, and that would be a good thing. Number 2 is Mario Teaches Typing 1 and 2. Whilst I can understand why something like this would be made, I am of the opinion that there are just better programs similar to this, such as Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing. That's what I used when I was a kid. Granted, just like Mario's Game Gallery, these games also had Charles Martinet providing Mario's voice, so that's pretty cool. Number 3 is every single Mario and Sonic Olympic game. To sum up how I feel about these titles in a few words, total loss of opportunity. I'll explain more another day. For now, we gotta get to number 1. I just want to say that if any of you watchers happen to like this particular Mario title, good on you, because you obviously see something I don't. And again, this is just my own humble opinion. But the worst Mario game I have ever played has got to be Super Mario Sunshine. I know I sound like a complete jerk saying that, but hear me out. If there's one thing that Mario never needed in his games, it would have to be a backpack buddy. Yes, I'm not a fan of FLUDD. Don't get me wrong, there were a couple 3D platformers that used the backpack buddy mechanic, and they worked wonders with it. Case in point, Banjo-Kazooie 1 and 2 and Ratchet & Clank. But to me, FLUDD seems to be more of an impediment rather than a benefit, and I say that for 2 reasons. First is because if anyone deserved to be co-starring along with Mario in this game, it would be his brother Luigi. Instead, he's given an over-glorified Nerf Super Soaker. Also, one of the main objectives of playing Mario Sunshine is having to clean up a mess that you didn't even create. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not fond of the idea of having to go around and clean up stuff. I like playing games sometimes to just make a mess, not pick it up. Another major issue I have with this game is its narrative. I mean, I get it. Unless we're talking about an RPG Mario title, stories have never been too important for Mario games. But at the same time, the plots in those games didn't pull the stupid stuff that went down in Mario Sunshine. The narrative goes like this. Mario and Peach go on a vacation to Isle Delfino, and almost as soon as they land, Mario ends up getting arrested for apparently vandalizing the entire island. He's tried, convicted, and sentenced to clean up the graffiti, or else he can't leave. By the way, the inhabitants of Isle Delfino, which are called Piantas, are a bunch of stupid-looking, stupid-sounding, ignorant imbeciles. I mean, come on. They can't tell the difference between the real Mario and the obvious fake. Not to mention, most of the things that you collect in Mario Sunshine, Shine Sprites, are right under these guys' noses. Yeah, no joke. A sizable percentage of the Shine Sprites that have to be collected are either in the hands of a Pianta or hidden in the nearest vicinity of one. These guys are super annoying, and I'm really happy that they haven't been featured that much in subsequent Mario games that followed. There are also just little things that bring Mario Sunshine down even further, such as its terrible voice acting and abrupt difficulty spikes for certain missions. Though, despite the fact that I pretty much hate this game, it does do some things right. The music in Mario Sunshine is actually quite good. Darn good. It's Mario music but with like a Caribbean twist. It fits very well with the island aesthetic. The graphics in this game are also good. Heck, I'd go as far as to say that these visuals almost look like they could have been from the Wii Mario titles. There's only one thing about both the music and the graphics. It was all wasted on what, in my opinion, is the worst Mario game ever. However, there is a silver lining. Every other Mario title, not including RPGs, after Sunshine, has gone above and beyond in redeeming what was done here. But like I said before, if any of you viewers like this game, then good on you, because you see what makes this game special. Granted, I did try to like this game. I just couldn't. Well everyone, I hope you liked my little countdown of what was in my opinion the worst Mario games of all time. If you did like the video, leave a like and maybe even a comment. I always leave a response. Also, if you want to see more from either me, or Mike, or Dylan, then click that subscribe and bell icons for future content.